I'm currently working as a an agile coach at ASB. However, my previous life was uh, I was a tester and a BA, and a lot of my testing experience will come into what I'm sharing with you today. What I'll cover overall is the reason why I need a screen reader, uh, what made me start using it in the first place, uh, and really just touch briefly on my time as a tester and how uh, these things that happen in life influenced a lot of the testing and how I approached accessibility. And I'll wrap up really quickly with a couple of personal reflections of my own. So at age 25, um, I'd been wearing glasses since I was about 14 at this stage, and I just noticed that year and year on, my vision was getting worse and worse. And at age 25, I was diagnosed with an eye condition called keratoconus. Now, if you think about the eye, the cornea is that bit on the top which we see through, and it's typically shaped like a dome. For those of us who have keratoconus, the cornea can no longer hold its shape, and it becomes more and more cone shaped. The surface of the cornea is irregular, and as such, our vision begins to go. Now, you guys may not see it, but I'm wearing a very solid pair of contact lenses right now, which correct the shape of the cornea and help me see. So that's why I'm not having to wear glasses. It looks a little something like this. For those of you who are unable to see the screen share, if you look at if you would imagine the eye looking a bit more like a mountain than a dome, the scleral lens that I'm wearing sits over the top so the light can come in straight, because otherwise it looks a little bit like this. When I see what most of you would see is this image on the left, which is just a normal dot. Without the lenses, I see about 20 dots. That's why whenever somebody says to me, "Hey, the moon looks awesome," I'm first to say, "Which one?" Because I see about 20. And corrected, I still see, while I have a bit more focus, I still see quite a bit of double vision. And really, it may having keratoconus causes double vision, shadows around objects, and what it does look like. So I'm just showing you a few images before I get to the next, before I get to the meat of what we'll be covering. Again, here's another one that you can see. So at the bottom is what you would see as a busy street, whereas the top is what I see when I'm wearing my contact lenses. And one last one, this is how some of you will look to me if you ever see me squinting. Lots of it's about as close as an approximation as I can get. So a couple of years ago, because of all this, a couple of years ago, I realized that things were becoming very, very difficult in terms of just being able to read things, even with the lenses on. If I go back to here, if you imagine with this rightmost image, a block of text, but all the letters looking like this, and letters beginning to overlap, sometimes it becomes very tricky to read things. So I began relying on the screen reader on my iPhone, not necessarily for the gestures and trying to find my way around, but sometimes it was just so I could look at a menu for a restaurant, or if I was flying late and I wasn't able to wear my lenses on a long haul flight because they dry out, I'd need to use a screen reader. And it was there were moments throughout my own kind of experience over the last couple of years where, admittedly, and this kind of goes back to some of the stuff that's been talked about in the previous sessions, where I'd personally find myself getting frustrated because I couldn't get to the text that I wanted to read. Or I would later find out that they'd put a whole bunch of text in, but it was actually an SVG image and I couldn't read anything. And so I would have these moments where it was very frustrating. And what that began to do was really began to influence my time testing. Uh, so Zoe mentioned that I'm working at ASB. A little side story, very relevant. Zoe actually came in at one point to help train a lot of the people at ASB on accessibility. And so I'm never going to forget that. Zoe, you are awesome. That's always going to be one of the best moments of having worked in the testing team at ASB, because it was so cool that accessibility was finally getting a lot of attention. And I'm very happy to say that there's a very cool, big accessibility community at ASB until now. And we're constantly talking and constantly trading ideas and constantly trying to find better ways to do things. But the thing that I wanted to share with you guys today, in addition to me having to use a screen reader, was my I'd like to call it the aha moment. So I'd like you to imagine me sitting there at the ASB trying to use a screen reader as a testing tool, like, and realizing, hang on, there's definitely a more interesting way to do this. And so the poor my poor workmate sitting next to me had the fortune or misfortune to watch me just pull both of these contact lenses out of my eyes, put them into a little case on my desk, put the headphones in, and be sitting this close to the screen because I couldn't see anything, and using the screen reader that way. And what that did for me in terms of a light bulb moment was it stopped me from thinking about, well, which WCAG standard are we not adhering to, or which requirement is this? All of a sudden, all I was thinking of was, can I actually do what I'm trying to do? As a if as a company putting something out to a customer, if we're saying that we're making this accessible, is it actually possible to achieve the things that we're actually telling customers we're allowing them to achieve? And what that did was it actually made me find some very interesting bugs. One of them, which I mentioned, was the fact that, text on images and not being able to have them read out. But what it also did, because I was now speaking from a place of personal experience as opposed to theoretical, but what about the person who's blind? It was me speaking from, well, I actually have trouble seeing it normally. This is why it's an issue. It made things a lot easier for me to articulate, made things a lot easier for me to say, well, no, this is something that definitely needs to be dealt with, because if I can't deal with it with my low vision, then somebody who has less vision than me will definitely struggle. And those were the very cool moments. And admittedly, as I mentioned, since I'm not working in testing anymore, admittedly, those are some of the moments that I do personally miss. Being able to work and help people in that way. Yeah, this is the overall not much more else to cover. I think the last bit I want to really touch on, guys, is just a few personal reflections that I've realized over the years. So the first thing that was really amazing for me, and it's been touched on, is that not everybody who uses a screen reader is blind. Because when I started using one, I didn't realize how helpful it could be just to be able to read big blocks of text and not struggle was life-changing. It's definitely helped me out day to day. The other thing that really stuck out with me over the years testing was, one of the best measures was not whether you've met every single standard, but can your users actually do what they need to do on your site? And one personal note for me is, I know that as I get older, I'm not going to have the same dexterity to be able to put these lenses into my eyes. But it's a very cool thought knowing that there is a community out there like you guys who really care about digital accessibility, So I know I've got a future to look forward to where the web is an accessible place, and that is awesome. So thank you guys for having me, and open to questions, but otherwise have an awesome evening.
Thank you so much, Carl. That was a very inspiring talk, and on a personal level, it kind of has more of an impact. So thank you very much for your time and effort. So Lauren, do we have any questions from the Q&A panel?
Nothing has come through yet, so if anyone wants to pop in a question, it's just down in the bottom panel. But yeah, otherwise there's been few comments on the chat. One from Sarah about saying usable, accessible over WCAG. And then, yeah, Gareth kind of commented back saying you can be 100% WCAG AAA and still to be totally unusable. So
correct, absolutely. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Carl.
Sure.
How easy was it for you to have to learn how to use a screen reader?
Not very easy, and at the beginning, because one of those things, if I'm being really honest, one of the things that prevented me from doing it sooner was there's a large sense of pride that you don't want to admit that you're losing your eyesight slowly, or that your eyesight is getting worse. So I put it off for a long time, and of course, when I started, it was very much me with either glasses or contact lenses on and saying, well, it's fine, I can still see it. But then I really, it was that same thing, that very light bulb moment, which made me realize, well, I'm not always going to have these. What happens if I can't? I'm going to have to learn how to do this eventually, so I might as well start learning now. And I believe it's like any skill. You just need to put the time in. There's a lot of stuff that happens like behind the scenes that that screen readers do, and the one reason I like using my phone at the moment is because it's all gesture based, and so it wasn't very difficult to pick that up once I decided to put the time in.
Thank you. Sorry, my mother's just calling me on my phone. Hope you didn't hear that. Thank you very much. Very insightful response. I think, do we have any Q&A, any questions in the Q&A now, Lauren?
No, not yet, but yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any of our panelists have a question for Carl? Well, that must mean that you did an awesome job of explaining everything. Thank you so much for your time, Carl, and a great presentation.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks, everyone.